The first time I realized how dangerous a lie can be. It wasn't in a courtroom. It was in a mansion hallway, under a chandelier that cost more than my dad's car, while a billionaire's stepdaughter stared at me like I was a stain on her white carpet. "Check his pockets," she said. Not please, not can someone, not I think. Just check his pockets. And the worst part was how fast everyone moved. 2 guards stepped closer like they'd rehearsed it. A house manager's smile disappeared. A maid froze with a tray in her hands. And my dad, the chauffeur, went so still I could almost hear his pride cracking. I was 19 standing there in a clean shirt I'd ironed myself, holding a small velvet pouch I'd been asked to deliver to the upstairs suite. I hadn't stolen anything. But for a second, it didn't matter. Because in that house, truth wasn't what happened. Truth was what someone powerful could make stick. It started as a normal day, which is usually how disasters start. My dad had been the Ashfords' chauffeur for years. Not the movie chauffeur who wears white gloves and speaks in riddles. My dad was the kind who showed up early, kept the cars spotless, knew everyone's coffee order, and stayed invisible on purpose because invisibility keeps you employed. I'd been home from community college for the weekend, and he asked if I wanted to come with him. He didn't say it like a favor. He said it like a test. "Come by the estate," he said. "Help me with something small. And maybe you'll see what the world is really like." He always spoke in those half sentences when he was trying not to sound emotional. I said yes because I wanted to spend time with him, and because part of me still believed hard work was a universal language. I believed if you were respectful, people would be respectful back. I didn't know some people treat respect like a privilege they rent out. We pulled up to the Ashford estate in a black sedan so polished it looked like the sky was trapped inside it. The gate opened without hesitation. My dad's face was calm, professional. Mine was trying to pretend I wasn't impressed. The mansion sat back from the driveway like it had all the time in the world. It wasn't just big. It was deliberate. Every tree placed like decoration. Every stone path a statement. Inside, the air smelled like money and lemon polish. Quiet, controlled, too clean to be real life. My dad introduced me to the house manager, Mrs. Caldwell, a woman who spoke in a soft voice but ran the place like a military base. "This is my son," my dad said, and his chest lifted a millimeter when he said it. Mrs. Caldwell gave me a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Welcome," she said, then immediately turned to my dad. "Mr. Ashford wants the car ready in an hour, and Miss Lila is upstairs asking for you." My dad's jaw tightened at the name. I caught it, the smallest flicker. "Understood," he said. Then when Mrs. Caldwell walked away, my dad leaned toward me and lowered his voice. "Don't wonder," he said. "And if anyone talks to you like you're not human, don't react. Just breathe." I tried to laugh it off. "Is it that bad?" He didn't laugh. "It can be," he said. That was the first warning. The second warning came 5 minutes later, in the form of Lila Ashford. Technically Lila Hart, but no one in that house ever used the stepfather's last name without meaning to claim it. She came down the staircase like it belonged to her body. Perfect posture, perfect hair, perfect outfit that probably looked casual, only because it was expensive. Her eyes hit me and stayed there half a second too long. Then she looked at my dad. "You brought him," she said. "Not your son. Not someone. Just him." My dad's voice stayed steady. "He's helping me today." Lila's lips curled, not into a smile, into a decision. "Fine," she said. "Since he's here, he can do something for me." My dad's shoulders stiffened. "Miss Lila," she waved her hand like his words were gnats. "I need this delivered upstairs," she said, holding out a small velvet pouch. "Suite 3, my jewelry case. Don't open it. Don't look inside. Just take it." She placed it in my hand before I could even respond, like she didn't want permission. She wanted compliance. I glanced at my dad. He gave me a look that said, "Do it. Keep it smooth." So I nodded. "Yes, ma'am," I said. She raised an eyebrow at the ma'am, like I'd accidentally reminded her that manners were a thing. Then she turned and walked away without another word. I stood there with the pouch in my hand, suddenly aware that the entire house felt like a stage, and I was a background character holding a prop. Mrs. Caldwell pointed me toward the stairs. "Suite 3 is at the end," she said. "Leave it on the dresser." I headed up, careful with my steps because the carpet was so thick it felt like it wanted to swallow sound. The hallway upstairs was lined with framed photos. Mr. Ashford smiling at galas, shaking hands with politicians, standing beside people who looked like they'd never waited in line for anything. And then I reached the suite. The door was slightly open. I knocked anyway. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. I pushed the door gently and called out, "Hello? I'm just delivering—" That's when I heard her voice behind me. "Don't move." I froze. I turned slowly and saw Lila standing in the hallway with 2 security guards behind her, and Mrs. Caldwell rushing up the stairs like she already knew what was about to happen. Lila's eyes were bright, almost excited, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. Lila stepped forward and pointed at the suite. "My jewelry is missing," she said. "My diamonds. My grandmother's pieces." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible," I said. "I just got here." Lila tilted her head. "Is it?" she asked sweetly. "Because you were the last person I saw with that pouch, and now my case is open." I looked past her into the room. The jewelry case was on the dresser, open, empty. My mouth went dry. I hadn't opened anything. I hadn't even stepped fully into the room yet. I'd been in the hallway. "I didn't touch it," I said. Lila let out a short laugh. "That's what thieves say," she replied. One of the guards stepped closer. "Sir," he said, not unkind, but not friendly either. "I need you to come with us." Mrs. Caldwell's face was tight. "Lila," she said quietly. "Let's not— Don't tell me to calm down." Lila snapped, suddenly loud. "Those jewels are worth more than his entire life." The words landed like a slap. I felt my cheeks burn, but my brain went cold, because there it was. Not the accusation, the contempt behind it. My dad appeared at the top of the stairs, breath slightly uneven like he'd run. "What's happening?" he asked, voice controlled but sharp. Lila turned to him with practiced outrage. "Your son stole from me," she declared. My dad's eyes snapped to me, then to the guards, then back to Lila. "He didn't steal anything," my dad said. Lila's smile hardened. "Oh? So now the chauffeur knows more than I do?" My dad took one step forward, and I saw him fight something inside himself. Anger, humiliation, the instinct to protect me. "Lila," he said, careful. "There are cameras. Check them." Lila blinked like she couldn't believe he'd suggested something so reasonable. "I don't need cameras to know what happened," she said. "Look at him. He doesn't belong here. He saw an opportunity. That's the part people don't understand about prejudice. It doesn't need evidence. It just needs permission." The guards looked at each other, uncertain. They weren't sure whether they were dealing with a real theft or a rich girl's tantrum. But in that house, uncertainty usually bends toward the person with power. "Search him," Lila said again. My chest tightened. "Please don't," my dad said, voice cracking for the first time. "Not like this," Lila's eyes flashed. "Not like what?" she demanded. "If he's innocent, he has nothing to hide." The guard reached toward me. I held up my hands, palms open, because I didn't want to be the kid who made a sudden move in a mansion full of armed security. "Fine," I said, voice steady. "Search me. It felt like swallowing glass. They patted my pockets, checked my jacket, my waistband. I stood there like a statue while a hallway full of expensive silence watched. They found nothing. Lila's smile didn't fade. It sharpened. "Then he hid them," she said immediately. "He must have put them somewhere." My dad's fists clenched. "Enough," he said. "Check the cameras. Right now." Mrs. Caldwell looked trapped between loyalty and logic. "There are cameras in the hallways," she admitted carefully. "And at the stairwell." Lila scoffed. "Go ahead," she said, like she was granting permission. "Waste time. He'll still be guilty." The security chief arrived then. Mr. Grayson, a tall man with a calm face and eyes that didn't play games. He took one look at the scene and the noise in the hallway died down a notch. "What happened?" he asked. Lila spoke fast, confident. "My jewelry is missing. He was the last one near my suite. I want him removed and I want the police called." Mr. Grayson didn't nod. Didn't agree. Didn't disagree. He looked at me. "Did you open the case?" he asked. "No," I said. "I was delivering the pouch. The door was already open." He looked at my dad. "Mr. Sterling," he said, respectful. "How long has your son been in the house?" My dad swallowed. "Less than 15 minutes." Mr. Grayson turned to Mrs. Caldwell. "Pull hallway footage from the last 30 minutes, he said. "Now." Lila's voice snapped. "You're not taking this seriously." Mr. Grayson met her eyes. "I'm taking it correctly," he replied. That sentence did something. Lila's confidence flickered, not because she was scared, but because she wasn't used to being challenged by someone who couldn't be bought with a smile. Mrs. Caldwell hurried away. The guard stayed near me, not rough, but firm. Like I was a risk until proven otherwise. And in that moment standing there, I had a thought that surprised me with how calm it was. Even if the cameras clear me, I will never forget how fast they believed her. I will never forget how quickly maybe became a search him. I will never forget my dad's face when she said my life was worth less than her jewelry. That thought didn't make me angry. It made me clear. We were taken downstairs, not to a cozy office, but to a small security room tucked behind a service corridor. A monitor wall lit the space with bluish light. Everything smelled like electronics and stale coffee. Mr. Grayson stood in front of the screens like a judge. Lila stood behind him like she owned the verdict. My dad stood next to me like a shield that could bleed. Mrs. Caldwell returned with a laptop and a hard drive. "Here," she said, breathless. "Hallway and stairwell feed. Time-stamped." Mr. Grayson nodded and plugged it in. Lila crossed her arms. "Great," she said. "Now we can watch him steal." Mr. Grayson didn't respond. He clicked through timestamps with the focus of someone who didn't care about drama, only truth. The footage appeared. The upstairs hallway, crisp and silent, like a museum corridor. We watched the time roll. We saw me walking up the stairs holding the pouch alone. We saw me stop at the suite, knock, pause, push the door slightly, lean in. Then, behind me, movement. Lila appeared, but not the way I remembered. On the footage, she didn't arrive with guards the first time. She arrived alone. She stepped out from the corner of the hallway like she'd been waiting out of frame. My stomach tightened. She looked both ways, quickly. Then she walked straight into the suite. I wasn't in the room. I was still in the doorway, my body angled like I hadn't crossed the threshold. Lila disappeared into the suite for 7 seconds. 7 seconds. Then she came back out. Her hand went to her pocket. She turned, and only then did she raise her voice, mouth opening wide, like she was calling someone. Then, on the footage, the guards arrived. Then Mrs. Caldwell. Then the scene we all lived. The room went silent. I felt my father's body go rigid beside me. Lila's face drained slowly, like someone had turned down the color in her skin. Mr. Grayson paused the video and rewound it. then played it again, slower, like he wanted no room for interpretation. 7 seconds. Look both ways. Enter suite. Exit. Then the performance. I turned my head toward Lila. She didn't look at the screen anymore. She stared at Mr. Grayson's hands like she wanted to burn the footage with her eyes. Mr. Grayson's voice was calm, but it had steel underneath. "Miss Lila," he said, "why did you enter the suite while Mr. Sterling was still at the threshold?" Lila swallowed. She started, then stopped. My dad spoke before she could find a lie. "Because she planted it," he said, voice shaking. Lila spun on him, furious. "How dare you?" Mr. Grayson raised a hand. "Stop," he said quietly. Lila's mouth snapped shut mid-word. Mr. Grayson leaned forward and tapped keys. "Show me the suite camera," he said. Mrs. Caldwell's eyes widened. "The suite doesn't have—" Mr. Grayson didn't look away from the screen. "It does," he said. "Not inside the bedroom. But the door has a camera for access logs. It's not decorative." He pulled it up. Now the footage was from above the door, slightly angled. We saw the same thing, but clearer. We saw Lila step inside. We saw her hand move toward the jewelry case. We saw the lid open. We saw her take something from the case and tuck it into her pocket. My pulse pounded so hard my ears rang. Lila's face went pale white. Mr. Grayson paused on the frame where the jewel glinted for half a second. Then he turned to her. "You made a false accusation," he said. "You attempted to have an innocent person detained. You used security and staff as props in a personal act?" Lila's voice came out thin, desperate. "You don't understand. I understand perfectly," Mr. Grayson replied. My dad's voice cracked, and when he spoke, it sounded like years of swallowed humiliation finally finding air. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you do that to him?" Lila's eyes flicked toward me, and in her gaze I saw something ugly. Not remorse, but annoyance that I hadn't stayed in my assigned place. Then she said it, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Because you needed to learn," she snapped. My stomach turned. "To learn what?" I asked. Lila's lips curled. "That you don't belong," she said. "That you can't just walk around here because your dad drives a car." That sentence should have crushed me. But it didn't, because the cameras had done something for me that I didn't realize I needed. They didn't just prove my innocence. They exposed her. They showed everyone exactly who she was when she thought no one could stop her. Mr. Grayson turned to Mrs. Caldwell. "Call Mr. Ashford," he said. "Now!" Lila's head snapped up. "No," she said quickly. "Wait. We can handle this privately." Mr. Grayson didn't blink. "This is no longer private," he said. My dad put a hand lightly on my shoulder. His hand was shaking. I could feel it. "I'm sorry," he whispered to me. I looked at him and shook my head. "You didn't do this," I said quietly. "You've been surviving it." A few minutes later, Mr. Ashford himself walked into the security room. He wasn't in a tux. He wasn't smiling for a photo. He looked like a man pulled out of a meeting, irritated to have his time interrupted. "What is this?" he demanded, voice clipped. Mrs. Caldwell spoke fast, controlled. "Sir, there's been an incident. Miss Lila reported missing jewelry and accused Daniel Sterling's son. Security footage." Mr. Ashford held up a hand. "Show me," he said. "Mr. Grayson played it. All of it. My entrance. Lila's 7 seconds. Her pocket. Her performance. The search. The nothing found." Mr. Ashford watched without a word. His face didn't flare with movie rage. It tightened, hardened. Like a man realizing a problem isn't outside his house. It's inside it. When the video ended, he didn't look at me first. He looked at Lila. "Is this true?" he asked. Lila's eyes darted. "I can explain," she said. Mr. Ashford's voice stayed quiet. which somehow made it worse. "Explain why you tried to ruin an innocent young man," he said. "Explain why you involved my staff. Explain why you humiliated my chauffeur and his son." Lila's chin lifted, stubborn. "He shouldn't have been here," she snapped. "People like that—" Mr. Ashford's hand hit the desk. Not a slam, a flat, controlled impact. "Enough," he said. The room went still. Mr. Ashford turned to my dad. "Daniel," he said, and for the first time his voice had something like shame in it. "I owe you an apology." My dad stared at him, stunned. Like apologies weren't something this house produced. Mr. Ashford looked at me next. "And I owe you one too," he said. I didn't know what to do with that. My chest felt tight, but my voice came out steady. "Thank you," I said. "But I'm not the one who needs fixing here." Lila scoffed under her breath. Mr. Ashford's head snapped toward her. "You are grounded from all events for the next 90 days, he said, cold. "Your access to this property will be restricted. And you will apologize. Now." Lila's face contorted. "You can't." "I can," Mr. Ashford said, "because I am responsible for what happens under this roof. And today, I failed." Lila's jaw trembled. Then she turned toward me like the apology was poison. "I'm sorry," she said flatly. "It wasn't real. But I didn't need it to be real. I needed the lie to die." Mr. Ashford turned to Mr. Grayson. "Send me a full report," he said, "and tighten internal protocols. No one gets searched on a guest's claim without corroboration again." Then he looked at my dad. "Daniel," he said, "take your son home, paid for the day, and we'll speak tomorrow." My dad nodded, voice too tight to speak. I walked out of that security room with my head high, but not because I'd won, because I'd seen the truth in full HD. I hadn't been in danger because of something I did. I'd been in danger because someone wanted me to be. Outside in the driveway, my dad and I stood by the car for a second before getting in. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows on the polished stone. My dad exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. "I should have never brought you," he said. I shook my head. "No," I replied. "You brought me to reality." "That's different." He looked at me, eyes glossy. "I hate that you had to hear her say those things." I stared at the mansion, the windows, the perfect hedges. "I'm glad I heard it," I said. And I meant it, because now I know what I'm dealing with. And I know something else. My dad frowned. "What?" I turned to him. "I'm not going to spend my life trying to earn respect from people who only give it when they're forced," I said. "I'm going to build a life where no one can search me in a hallway because a rich girl got bored." My dad swallowed hard, then nodded once, like that sentence gave him something he hadn't realized he needed. Permission to stop shrinking. We got into the car and drove away. And as the gate closed behind us, I thought about the moment in the hallway when they patted my pockets, like my body was evidence, like my dignity was optional. I thought about how quickly power becomes truth when no one checks. Then I thought about the cameras, how they didn't just save me. They revealed the real theft. Not jewels, humanity. And I promised myself with a clarity I'd never had before, that no matter where I ended up in life, no matter how close I ever got to houses like that, I would never become the kind of person who needs someone else to be small, so I can feel big. We didn't talk much on the drive home. My dad kept both hands on the wheel like if he loosened his grip, something worse would happen. His jaw was set so tight, I could see the muscle twitch near his ear. The kind of silence that isn't calm, just contained. I stared out the window, watching the mansion fade behind the trees. And I realized something that messed with my head more than the accusation itself. If there hadn't been cameras, my life would have changed in one hallway. Not because I stole anything, because someone powerful decided I did. And that meant the most dangerous thing in that world wasn't money. It was certainty. The kind of certainty that walks up to you and says, "Check his pockets," and expects the universe to obey. When we got home, my dad didn't go inside right away. He sat in the car for a minute with the engine off, staring at the dashboard like he was reading bad news. "I should quit," he said finally, voice rough. I turned toward him. "Dad?" "No," he cut in, shaking his head. "I mean it. I've taken a lot. I've swallowed a lot. But today they put their hands on you like you were nothing." He swallowed hard, and I stood there and let it happen. That hurt more than Lila's words because I could hear the shame behind it. Not shame at me. Shame at himself for surviving by staying quiet. "You didn't let it happen," I said. "You stopped it." He scoffed, but it was hollow. "The cameras stopped it." And he was right. Cameras don't care who your father is. They don't care what brand of shoes you're wearing. They don't get intimidated by a last name. They just show what happened. But I also knew something else. My dad was the reason the cameras got checked in the first place. He was the first person who said it out loud with confidence. "Check the footage," when everyone else was ready to treat suspicion like proof. "You said to check," I reminded him. "That matters." He looked at me, eyes glossy. "It shouldn't take that." He whispered, "It shouldn't take video evidence to be treated like a human being." I nodded slowly. "I know. That night I didn't sleep much. Not because I was scared of them, but because my brain kept replaying the hallway like a loop. The moment the guard stepped toward me, the moment my dad's voice cracked, the moment Lila said my life wasn't worth her jewelry. And the more I replayed it, the more I realized the real damage wasn't the accusation. It was the speed. How fast the house turned. How quickly he's delivering something. Became, search him. How naturally everyone accepted the idea that the chauffeur's son could be guilty without a single fact. The next morning, my dad got a call before he even finished his coffee. He answered with his professional voice, the one he used for the Ashfords. Calm, flat, safe. "Yes, sir." I watched his face change as he listened. His eyes widened slightly, then narrowed, like he was bracing. When he hung up, he exhaled through his nose. "Mr. Ashford wants us there," he said. "Us?" I asked. He nodded once. He said, "You too." My stomach tightened. "Why?" My dad stared at the coffee cup like it was going to give him answers. "He said he needs to talk to you directly," he replied. And he sounded angry. That word, angry, hit me wrong. Because when rich people get angry, it doesn't always land on the person who deserves it. Sometimes it lands on whoever is closest and weakest. "I'm not going," I said immediately. My dad's eyes flicked to mine. "Noah, I'm not going back to that house to be a lesson," I said. My voice was steady, but I could feel the heat underneath. "If he wants to apologize, he can do it without us walking into another trap." My dad rubbed his forehead, tired. "He said it's important," he murmured. "He said he wants to fix what happened." Fix. That word is dangerous too, because some people think fixing means throwing money at a wound and calling it healed. But there was something else in my dad's face, something I hadn't seen before. Hope, maybe. Not hope for money, hope for dignity. So I took a breath and said, "Okay, but we do it on our terms." My dad blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means if anyone raises their voice, we leave," I said. "If anyone tries to twist the story, we leave. If anyone tries to search me again or treat me like a suspect, we leave. No arguing, no proving. We just leave." My dad stared at me like he didn't recognize me for a second, and then I saw it. He was proud. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that sits behind a man's eyes when his kid finally stands up straight. "Okay," he said, "on our terms." When we arrived, we didn't go through the front. Not because we were sneaking, but because the security chief met us at the side entrance before we even parked. Mr. Grayson looked the same as yesterday, calm, controlled. But his tone was different. "Morning, Mr. Sterling," he said to my dad, then turned to me. "Noah." He didn't call me sir. He didn't overdo it. He just acknowledged me like a person. "Mr. Ashford is in his study," he said. "He asked that you come directly." As we walked, I noticed something immediately. The house felt alert. Staff moved quieter, faster, like something had happened behind the scenes. And then I saw Lila. She was at the top of the stairs, leaning on the railing like she owned gravity. But her face wasn't smug today. It was tight, defensive. Her eyes tracked me like she was trying to decide if I was a threat or an inconvenience. I didn't look away. I didn't glare. I just held her gaze long enough to let her feel what she'd tried to take from me yesterday. Control. She glanced away first. We entered Mr. Ashford's study, and the man himself stood behind a desk that looked like it had never seen a cheap pen in its life. He wasn't smiling. "Daniel," he said to my dad, voice low. "Sir," my dad replied, straight-backed. Mr. Ashford's eyes moved to me. "Noah," he said. I nodded once. "Mr. Ashford." He gestured toward the chairs in front of his desk. "Sit," he said. We sat. Mr. Grayson stood near the door, a quiet presence like a reminder that yesterday had rules now. "Mr. Ashford didn't start with small talk. He didn't pretend the air wasn't heavy. "I watched the footage last night," he said. I didn't answer. I waited. He continued, voice controlled. "I watched it 3 times. His jaw tightened. "And I realized something I do not like about my house." My dad stayed still. I stayed still. Mr. Ashford looked at my dad. "Daniel, you have worked for me for years. You've been loyal. You've been discreet. You've been professional." My dad's throat bobbed. Mr. Ashford looked back at me. "And your son was treated like a criminal, based on a claim and a stereotype." He paused. "That should not happen under my roof," he said quietly. "Ever." I felt something loosen in my chest, but I didn't let it soften my posture. Words are easy in houses like this. Accountability is rare. "What happens now?" I asked. Mr. Ashford's eyes sharpened like he appreciated the directness. "Now," he said, "there are consequences." The door opened behind us and I didn't have to turn to know who it was. The room changed temperature. Lila walked in. Her chin was high, but her eyes weren't confident. They were angry in a cornered way. Mr. Ashford didn't tell her to sit. That was the first consequence. "Apologize," he said. Lila's jaw tightened. She looked at me like I'd forced this. "I said sorry yesterday," she snapped. Mr. Ashford's voice stayed calm. "You said words," he replied. "You did not apologize." Lila's eyes flashed. "You're humiliating me." Mr. Ashford leaned forward slightly, and the pressure in the room increased without him raising his voice. "You humiliated an innocent young man and his father," he said. "In my home, using my staff, using my security. You weaponized my house." Lila's nostrils flared. "He doesn't belong here." My dad inhaled sharply, but I felt his restraint. He was trying. I could see it. Mr. Ashford's gaze went cold. "That sentence," he said, "is exactly why we are having this conversation." Lila's eyes darted. She looked like she wanted to argue her way out, but she couldn't. The cameras had erased her favorite tool, deniability. Mr. Ashford nodded toward Mr. Grayson. "Tell her," he said. Mr. Grayson spoke simple and clinical. "We recovered the jewelry from Miss Lila's private bathroom drawer, along with the pouch." Lila's face went pale, then red, like her body couldn't decide between fear and rage. "That's..." she started. Mr. Grayson didn't blink. We also have the footage of you placing it there after the accusation. Silence slammed down. My stomach twisted. Not because I was surprised, but because the lie had been so casual. So easy. She hadn't even been stealing for money. She'd been stealing for power. Mr. Ashford looked at her like she was a stranger. "You will write a formal apology," he said. "To Noah, to Daniel, and you will sign a statement acknowledging the false accusation. You will also lose access to the house's staff for personal errands, until further notice." Lila's eyes widened. "What?" "You will not use people as props," he said. "Not again." Lila's voice rose, sharp. "You're choosing them over me?" Mr. Ashford didn't flinch. "I'm choosing what's right over what's convenient," he replied. Lila's gaze snapped to me, and I saw something dark there. This wasn't over for her. Not emotionally. So I spoke, calm and clear, not to fight, but to lock the truth in place. "I don't want your apology because I need it," I said. "I want it because you need to understand that you can't do that to people and expect the world to stay quiet." Lila's lips curled. "You think you're teaching me something?" I met her eyes. "No," I said. "I think the cameras did." Mr. Ashford's hand lifted slightly, and Mr. Grayson stepped forward half a pace, not threatening, ending the exchange. Lila looked at Mr. Ashford one last time, betrayed and furious. "You're making a mistake," she hissed. Mr. Ashford's voice was flat. "No," he said. "I'm correcting one." Lila stormed out. The door closed and the room exhaled again. Mr. Ashford looked at my dad. "Daniel," he said quietly, "I'm sorry. Truly." My dad's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Because for a man like my dad, apologies from men like Mr. Ashford weren't part of the rules. And when the rules change, you don't know where to put your hands. Mr. Ashford turned to me. "Noah," he said, "I want to offer restitution." I held his gaze. "I'm not taking money to forget this," I said. His eyes didn't harden. They softened. "Good," he replied, "because that's not what I meant." He paused. "I want to offer you opportunity," he said. "Internship, scholarship, connections, not as charity, as correction. Because you were harmed here, and I am responsible for the environment that allowed it. My first instinct was to reject it out of pride, to prove I couldn't be bought. But then I remembered the hallway, the search, the speed of the accusation, and I realized something that felt uncomfortable but true. Refusing opportunity doesn't punish them. It punishes me. So I asked the only question that mattered. "Would you offer this if the cameras hadn't existed?" I said. Mr. Ashford didn't dodge it. He looked down for a second, then back up. "No," he admitted. And that's exactly what I have to live with. That honesty hit harder than any polished speech. I nodded slowly. "Then here's what I want," I said. Mr. Ashford watched me carefully. "I want a policy," I continued. "A real one. That nobody gets searched on a claim alone. That staff and their families are treated with basic respect. That security follows procedure, not pressure." Mr. Grayson's eyes flicked to me, almost approving. Mr. Ashford nodded once. "Done," he said. "It will be written, implemented, and enforced." My dad looked at me like he couldn't believe I'd just asked for that, instead of money. But that was the transformation I didn't expect. I didn't want revenge. I wanted structure. I wanted the next kid who walked into that house holding a pouch. Not to end up against a wall because someone rich felt bored. Mr. Ashford leaned back slightly. "And the scholarship?" he asked. "You'll consider it?" I hesitated, then said, "I'll consider it. If it's earned, if it's real, and if my dad isn't punished for what she did." My dad's head snapped toward me. Mr. Ashford's voice stayed steady. "Daniel will not be punished," he said. "Daniel will be respected." My dad's eyes glistened, and he looked away quickly like he didn't want anyone to see. We stood to leave, and as we walked out of the study, I noticed something that made my chest tighten in a good way. Staff members we passed didn't look through me anymore. They looked at me like I existed, not because of power, because the lie had been exposed, because the house had been forced to admit its own ugliness. At the front entrance, Mr. Grayson stopped us. "Drive safe," he said to my dad, then looked at me. "Noah," I nodded. "Thank you for checking the cameras." He held my gaze for a beat. "Truth is cheaper than assumptions," he said quietly. "But people still avoid it." We walked out into the sunlight, and the mansion looked the same as it always had. Perfect, expensive, unmoving. But I didn't feel small anymore. On the drive home, my dad finally spoke, voice low. "You were brave in there." I shook my head. "I was tired," I said. "Tired of pretending respect is something you beg for." He glanced at me, eyes soft. "I'm proud of you," he said. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stared out the window again, watching the road unwind in front of us. Because the truth is, the story didn't end when the cameras proved I was innocent. That was just the moment the house got caught. The real story was what happened next. How Lila reacted when she realized she'd lost the power to accuse without consequences, and what she tried to do when humiliation didn't work anymore. And I didn't learn about that until my phone rang that night, from a number I didn't recognize. And a voice on the other end said very calmly, "That call didn't sound like a prank. It didn't sound like gossip. It sounded like someone who had watched rich people do ugly things behind beautiful walls and knew exactly what came next. You need to watch your father. People like Lila don't lose quietly." I sat on the edge of my bed with the phone pressed to my ear, staring at nothing. "Who is this?" I asked. A pause, then, "Someone who works there. Someone who's seen what she does when she doesn't get what she wants." My throat went dry. "What is she going to do?" I asked. Another pause, shorter this time, like they were choosing how much truth to hand me. "She's going to make this about your dad," the voice said, "because she can't punish you directly without looking guilty. But she can punish him quietly and call it policy." The line went dead. I sat there for a full minute, phone still in my hand, my mind trying to sprint through possibilities. Get him fired. Blame him for security failures. Accuse him of bringing unauthorized people. Say he tampered with cameras. Say he stole the jewels first and used her as cover. When you've already been falsely accused once, your brain learns how to imagine the next lie faster than it imagines safety. I didn't wait for my dad to get hit by it. I went straight to him in the kitchen and told him everything. At first, he tried to shrug it off because that's what working-class people do when danger lives in places they need for rent money. They minimize it so they can survive the next day. But when I repeated the words, "She won't lose quietly," his face tightened. "She'll come after my job," he said. "Then we don't let her do it in the dark," I replied. My dad stared at me like he wasn't used to that kind of certainty from me. "What do we do?" he asked. And this was the moment I realized the transformation wasn't just mine. It was his too. Because for years he'd learned one strategy: stay invisible, stay employed. Now he was asking for a new strategy. "We make everything visible," I said. "We document. We communicate in writing. We keep receipts. And we tell Mr. Grayson before she tells her version." My dad hesitated. "Going to security feels like escalating." "It's not escalating," I said. "It's refusing to be cornered." The next morning, before my dad even started his shift, we requested a meeting with Mr. Grayson. Not with drama, not with accusations, with facts. When we got there, Mr. Grayson didn't look surprised. That alone told me the caller wasn't lying. Something was already moving behind the scenes. "I had a feeling this wasn't finished," he said. I told him about the phone call. I told him what the voice warned. I told him my concern. She would shift blame onto my father. Mr. Grayson listened without interrupting, then nodded once. "Good," he said. "You came early." My dad swallowed. "Is she doing something?" Mr. Grayson's expression stayed calm, but his eyes hardened. "She already tried," he said. My chest tightened. "What?" I asked. Mr. Grayson turned one of his monitors slightly and pulled up a log. "An hour after you left yesterday," he said, "someone attempted to access the security archive from an internal device. Specifically, the file containing the hallway footage from the moment you were accused." My stomach dropped. My dad whispered, "She tried to delete it." Mr. Grayson nodded. "Or alter it. Either way, she wanted control of the story again." I felt heat rise behind my ribs. But it wasn't rage the way it used to be. It was clarity. "And you have proof?" I asked. Mr. Grayson pointed to the screen. "Timestamps, device ID, user credentials." My dad looked like he might faint. "Is it her?" Mr. Grayson didn't answer immediately. "It's linked to her assistant's account," he said, "which is the same thing in houses like this." My dad's shoulders slumped, like his worst suspicion had just become a confirmed fact. "Mr. Grayson looked directly at him. "Mr. Sterling," he said, "your job is safe." My dad blinked. "How can you be sure?" "Because the moment someone tries to tamper with cameras after making a false accusation," Mr. Grayson replied, "it's no longer a family issue. It becomes a security issue." That phrase was like oxygen, not because it guaranteed justice, but because it meant someone with authority had drawn a line. Mr. Grayson continued, "Mr. Ashford has already been informed. He asked me for two things: protect staff from retaliation, and make sure this never happens again." I watched my dad breathe out slowly, like his body had been bracing for a hit. And then Mr. Grayson did something that I didn't expect. He looked at me and said, "I need you to make a choice." I frowned. "What choice?" "Lila is going to come to you," he said. "Not directly. Through someone. A friend. A message. An apology. A threat. She'll try to pull you into a private conversation so she can rewrite what happened." My spine went cold, because it was exactly what the caller had warned me about. "Control the narrative." Mr. Grayson's tone stayed measured. "If she contacts you, you can ignore it," he said. "Or you can forward it to me. If you forward it, it becomes part of the record. It makes retaliation harder." I nodded without hesitation. "I forward everything," I said. Mr. Grayson held my gaze for a beat, then nodded once like he respected that. "Good," he said. "That's how people like her lose power. Not because someone yells louder, because someone keeps facts." That afternoon, the trap arrived right on schedule. A message from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Lila. I don't want drama. Can we talk privately? I'll explain." I think we got off on the wrong foot. It almost made me laugh. Almost. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. First you accuse, then you get caught. Then you try to turn it into a misunderstanding. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to Mr. Grayson. 10 minutes later, another message. "I can help your dad. Don't make this worse than it needs to be." That one hit me in the chest, because that was the blade. Threaten the person you love so you step out of line. I forwarded it too. Then came the last message, the one that tried to reassign guilt. "You think cameras tell the whole story. They don't. People like you don't get to threaten my family. People like you." There it was again. The same poison in different packaging. I forwarded that one too, and I turned my phone off. That night, my dad came home looking exhausted, but not defeated. "They moved me to a different schedule," he told me. My stomach tightened. "Did she do that?" He shook his head. "No, Mr. Ashford did. Mr. Grayson's idea. Less contact, less opportunity. I nodded. Good. My dad sat down heavily at the table. I hate that this is our life now, he said quietly. I sat across from him. No, I replied. This was always your life. They just made sure you carried it alone. Now we're not letting you carry it alone. He looked up at me, eyes wet. I didn't want you in this world, he whispered. I wanted to keep you away from it. I understood him in a way I hadn't before, because he wasn't ashamed of me. He was afraid for me. I'm glad you brought me, I said. Not because it was easy, because now we can't pretend. A week passed, then 2, and slowly the mansion's noise shifted. Lila stopped appearing in common areas when my dad was around. Staff moved with a new caution, like rules had been rewritten. The house manager started documenting requests more formally. Security became less, do what the family wants, and more, do what procedure says. One morning, my dad came home with a piece of paper folded in his pocket like it was fragile. What's that? I asked. He handed it to me. It was a written apology, signed, formal, addressed to both of us. Not warm, not heartfelt, but clear. It acknowledged the false accusation and the wrongdoing. At the bottom, there was a line that mattered more than any emotional sentence. Any future allegations will follow standard protocol, requiring corroboration and review of footage prior to any search or detention. I stared at it longer than I expected. My dad watched me. That's what you asked for, he said softly. I nodded. Yeah, I said. That's what I asked for. He leaned back and exhaled. I never thought someone would write rules because of us, he admitted. And that was the real ending. Not that Lila got punished. Not that a billionaire learned a lesson. Those are storybook closures. The real ending was smaller and more important. My dad could go to work without fear that a rich girl's mood could turn him into a suspect. And I could walk into a space like that and know that my dignity didn't depend on someone's belief in it. Because cameras didn't just prove I didn't steal jewels. They exposed what was really missing in that house. Basic respect. And once respect becomes policy instead of permission, people like Lila lose the only weapon they ever really had, the ability to accuse without consequence. I still think about that hallway sometimes. The hands patting my pockets, the silence of the staff, my dad's face when he realized no one was on our side until a screen made them be. And every time I think about it, I come back to the same truth. In places where money is loud, the most powerful thing you can have isn't status. It's receipts. You need to watch your father. People like Lila don't lose quietly.